My dear sisters and brothers, let me ask you something very gently, very honestly. In a world that is constantly telling us who to admire, who to follow, and who to become, have we ever paused to ask Allah who the best woman truly is? Because what if the answer is not what social media celebrates? What if it is not fame, not beauty, not influence, but something far deeper, far more eternal? Tonight, I want you to listen not just with your ears, but with your heart. You see, when we open the Qur'an and the Sunnah, we are not left confused. Allah and His Messenger did not leave us guessing. They showed us models of women whose worth was not measured by likes or applause, but by their yaqeen, their patience, their sincerity when no one was watching. And subhanallah, when you truly reflect on their lives, you begin to realize that the definition of the best woman completely transforms. It becomes quieter, stronger, more nur-filled than anything the dunya can offer. So as we sit together, I want you to gently put aside every worldly standard you have been taught and allow your heart to rediscover what true excellence looks like through the lens of revelation. Because when we understand who Allah honored as the best women, it doesn't just inform us, it changes us, it elevates our goals, and it gives every single woman listening hope that true greatness is within reach, bidnillah, as taught and beautifully reminded by Dr. Haifaa Younis. My dear sisters and brothers, when we speak about excellence in a woman, we must first pause and ask ourselves who defined excellence for us. Was it the world that constantly changes its standards? Or was it Allah, the one whose knowledge is perfect and whose wisdom is timeless? Because if we are honest, the world has never stopped redefining what it means to be a successful woman. One decade it is beauty, another it is influence, another it is independence in a very specific mold, and many sincere women find themselves exhausted, running after a finish line that keeps moving further away. But Islam came not to confuse us, but to anchor us. True excellence in a woman, as taught in our deen, is not measured by the noise around her, but by the nur within her heart. It is not about how loudly the world applauds her, but about how quietly Allah is pleased with her. And this is a very liberating realization, because it shifts the entire conversation from performance to sincerity, from appearance to essence, from temporary validation to eternal worth. When Allah looks at His servants, He does not look at the outward forms the way people do. He looks at the hearts, the intentions, the hidden moments when no one is watching except Him. Think about how much pressure lifts when a woman truly understands this. She no longer has to compete in the endless race of comparison. She no longer measures her value by someone else's highlight reel. Instead, her compass becomes very clear. How close am I to Allah? How sincere is my heart when I pray? How patient am I when life becomes heavy? How gentle am I when I have the power to be harsh? These are the quiet metrics of excellence in Islam, and they are accessible to every woman in every place, in every season of life. Faith, iman, is the foundation of this excellence. Not the iman we claim with our tongues alone, but the iman that settles deeply into the heart and transforms behavior. It is the iman that makes a woman wake up before Fajr, even when her body is tired. It is the iman that makes her lower her gaze, even when no one would notice otherwise. It is the iman that makes her speak truth gently when it would be easier to remain silent. This kind of faith is not loud, but it is powerful. It does not always trend, but it is always seen by Allah. And sincerity, ikhlas, is what gives that faith its purity. Because actions without sincerity can look impressive to people but carry little weight with Allah. A woman may do many visible good deeds, but what elevates her in the sight of Allah is the hidden conversation between her and her Lord. It is the tear she wipes away before anyone sees. It is the dua she whispers in the darkness of the night. It is the good deed she intentionally keeps secret. Sincerity is what transforms ordinary acts into mountains of reward. One of the most beautiful aspects of our deen is that it democratizes excellence. Islam does not reserve greatness for the wealthy, the famous, the highly educated, or the socially visible. A woman in a quiet home, unknown to the world, may be more beloved to Allah than someone whose name is widely recognized. This is why our hearts find so much comfort when we study the women honored in the Qur'an and the Sunnah. Their stories remind us that Allah's standard is very different from society's standard. Closeness to Allah, this is the true north of a believing woman's life. And closeness is not built in grand public moments alone. It is built in consistency, in small acts done repeatedly with love, in choosing patience when emotions rise, in choosing gratitude when life feels insufficient, in choosing trust when the future looks uncertain. Every one of these moments quietly elevates a woman's rank with her Lord. Sometimes we mistakenly think that excellence must look dramatic or extraordinary. But in Islam, much of true greatness is deeply ordinary in appearance. It is a woman who maintains her salah despite a busy schedule. It is a woman who guards her tongue when she is hurt. It is a woman who continues to hope in Allah even after repeated disappointments. These are not always moments that get recognition in the dunya, but they are moments that are immensely weighty in the akhirah. Patience. Sabr is another defining quality of true excellence, not passive resignation but active, dignified endurance. The patience that holds the heart steady when storms come. Every woman, regardless of her circumstances, will face tests. Some are visible, many are hidden. Some are brief, others stretch for years. What distinguishes the excellent woman is not that she is free from hardship, but that she remains connected to Allah through it. Her heart may feel pain, but it does not lose its direction. And with patience comes reliance, tawakkul. The excellent woman learns over time to place her trust where it truly belongs, not in people's approval, not in perfectly controlled outcomes, but in the wisdom of Allah. This does not make her passive. On the contrary, it gives her a unique strength. She works, she strives, she plans, but her heart is calm because it knows that the final writing is with Allah. There is a deep serenity in a woman who has mastered tawakkul. The world around her may be chaotic, but inside there is sakina. We also cannot speak about excellence without mentioning character, akhlaq. The Prophet elevated the status of good character repeatedly, and this applies profoundly to women seeking closeness to Allah. Gentleness, modesty, humility, these are not soft traits in the weak sense. They are powerful spiritual disciplines. To remain kind when provoked requires strength. To remain humble when praised requires awareness. To forgive when hurt requires a heart connected to something higher than ego. Another quiet marker of excellence is consistency in repentance. The best women are not those who never slip, because we are human, but those who return quickly and sincerely when they do. There is something deeply beloved to Allah about a servant who keeps coming back again and again with humility. A woman who regularly turns to Allah in istighfar polishes her heart continuously. She does not allow mistakes to harden her. She allows them to soften her and draw her nearer to her Lord. And my dear sisters, one of the most comforting truths in our deen is that excellence is not tied to one specific life path. Whether a woman is married or single, working outside or within the home, raising children or not, young or elderly, the doors of excellence remain wide open. Islam does not confine greatness to one narrow role. Rather, it elevates intention within whatever role Allah has written for her. This is profoundly empowering when we truly internalize it, because sometimes women feel unseen. Sometimes they feel that their quiet sacrifices are unnoticed. But nothing sincere is ever lost with Allah. Every sleepless night done with patience, every act of care done for His sake, every moment of self-restraint done out of taqwa, it is all written. The scales of Allah are precise beyond our imagination. When a woman builds her life around faith, sincerity, and closeness to Allah, something beautiful happens internally. Her worth becomes stable. It no longer fluctuates with compliments or criticism. She becomes less fragile in the face of people's opinions. She becomes more anchored, more peaceful, more purposeful. And this inner transformation is perhaps one of the greatest gifts of living by Allah's definition of excellence. So when we ask, who is the best woman? The answer is not a name trending in the dunya. The answer is a description. She is the one whose heart is most alive with iman. She is the one whose deeds are most sincere. She is the one who remembers Allah in ease and in hardship. She is the one who chooses what pleases Him even when it is difficult. And the most hopeful part of this entire conversation is that this path is open to every single woman who turns her heart sincerely toward her Lord. My dear sisters and brothers, one of the greatest mercies of Allah upon us is that He did not leave us to guess our way through life. He did not simply command us toward excellence and then leave the path undefined. Instead, in His infinite wisdom, He gave us living, breathing examples women whose stories are preserved not for history alone, but for guidance, comfort, and transformation. When we open the Qur'an and the Sunnah with reflective hearts, we do not just read names, we encounter roadmaps. We encounter proof that real success is possible in every circumstance, every era, every kind of life. Because sometimes the shaitan whispers to the believing woman, your situation is too complicated, your life is too busy, your struggles are too heavy. But then Allah presents us with women whose tests were far greater, whose environments were far harsher, yet whose hearts rose to extraordinary heights. Their lives gently but firmly dismantle our excuses. They remind us that proximity to Allah is never blocked by circumstances. It is only blocked when the heart turns away. When we reflect on the women honored in Revelation, one of the first things that becomes clear is that they were not all living the same kind of life. They were not placed in identical conditions. Some lived in comfort, others in hardship. Some were surrounded by believers, others stood completely alone in environments of disbelief. This diversity itself is a mercy, because it tells every woman listening, wherever you are, however your life looks, the path to Allah is still open for you. Take, for example, the towering figure of Maryam bint Imran. Her story is one of the most powerful illustrations of what it means to anchor your heart in Allah when the world around you does not understand you. She was chosen, purified, elevated, and yet her life was not free of trial. In fact, her test was one that would shake the strongest of hearts. To carry a child in complete isolation, to face the assumptions and accusations of people, to endure loneliness at a level most of us cannot even imagine. And yet, what defines Maryam in the Qur'an is not panic, not resentment, not loss of faith. It is devotion, it is trust, it is quiet, unwavering connection to Allah even in her most vulnerable moments. Allah did not praise her for worldly status. He praised her purity, her devotion in worship. This alone reshapes our understanding of what true success looks like. Then we look at the life of Asiya bint Muzahim, and the lesson deepens in a completely different direction. Here was a woman living in one of the most oppressive households imaginable, the palace of Pharaoh himself. If anyone had an excuse to feel spiritually suffocated, it would have been her. She was surrounded by tyranny, by disbelief, by power used in the most unjust ways, yet her heart remained free. Allah honored her not because of where she lived, but because of what she chose internally. Her famous dua, asking Allah for a home near Him in Jannah, reveals a heart that had already detached from the glitter of the dunya. She lived in a palace but longed for nearness to Allah. She had access to luxury but chose faith over comfort. Her story shatters the assumption that environment alone determines spiritual success. And then we reflect on the beloved daughter of the Prophet, Fatimah bint Muhammad. Her life teaches us yet another dimension of excellence, the beauty of patience within the rhythms of daily life. She was not living in worldly luxury. In fact, many narrations describe the physical hardship she endured in her home. Yet what shines through her story is her contentment, her modesty, her deep love for Allah and His Messenger. Fatimah's excellence was not built on grand public moments alone. It was built in the quiet spaces of service, in her patience of difficulty, in her unwavering dignity. This is deeply comforting, especially for women whose lives feel ordinary or unseen. Because Fatimah reminds us that what happens inside the home, inside the heart, inside the private moments of sacrifice, these are profoundly weighty with Allah. When we place these women side by side, something beautiful becomes clear. There is no single template for being the best woman. Maryam shows us devotion in isolation. Asiya shows us faith under oppression. Fatimah shows us patience in daily struggle. Different lives, different tests, but the same core qualities: iman, sincerity, trust in Allah, and steadfastness when tested. And this is exactly why their stories remain timeless. Because every woman listening can find herself somewhere in their reflections. Some may feel alone in their journey like Maryam. Some may feel spiritually challenged by their environment like Asiya. Some may feel overwhelmed by the weight of daily responsibilities like Fatimah. And Allah, in His mercy, gave us examples for every one of these emotional landscapes. Another powerful lesson from these honored women is that closeness to Allah often grows strongest in moments of vulnerability. Not when life is perfectly comfortable, but when the heart is stretched. When you read their stories carefully, you notice that their most elevated moments came alongside their most difficult tests. This is not coincidence. This is part of Allah's tarbiyah of the believer. So when a woman today faces hardship, whether emotional, physical, or spiritual, she should not immediately assume that she is being pushed away from Allah. Very often, she is being invited closer. The road of the righteous was never paved only with ease. It was paved with patience, with tears, with moments of deep reliance. But it always led to nearness. Another subtle but profound thread connecting these women is their internal clarity. They knew what mattered most. The noise of the world did not confuse their priorities. Maryam chose devotion over reputation. Asiya chose faith over palace life. Fatimah chose contentment over complaint. This clarity is something many people struggle with today because the world is very loud about what should matter. But the woman who studies these lives carefully begins to recalibrate. Her goals become quieter but more powerful. She starts to measure success not by visibility but by sincerity, not by applause but by acceptance with Allah. And when this shift happens internally, her entire emotional world begins to stabilize. There is also immense hope in recognizing that these women were human. They felt pain. They experienced fear. They lived through uncertainty. Excellence in Islam was never about being emotionally numb or unrealistically perfect. It was about where the heart returns after those human moments. It was about the direction of the soul. And perhaps one of the most tender lessons we draw is that Allah sees the hidden chapters of a woman's life. The parts no one else fully understands. The quiet endurance. The silent dua, the private acts of worship. The overlooked sacrifices. Nothing is lost. Nothing is wasted. The Rab who honored Maryam in her solitude, who elevated Asiya in her oppression, who loved Fatimah in her simplicity. He is the same Rab watching over every sincere woman today. So when we say the lives of these honored women provide a roadmap, we do not mean a rigid script. We mean a set of living principles. Anchor your heart in Allah. Choose sincerity over show. Hold on to patience when tested. Maintain dignity in hardship. Keep turning back to your Lord in every season. These are the coordinates of true success. And the most calming realization of all is this: the door they walked through is still open. The at-tariq to being among the best women has not been closed with history. It remains wide, welcoming every heart that sincerely seeks Allah, every woman who quietly chooses Him again and again in the small and the large moments of her life.